From Kansas City, Missouri, we are live at the 2019 MIAA Football Media Day. Hi, I'm Joey McWilliams, and it is a privilege, a pleasure to get to be with you today, live streaming here, MidwestSports.net, our coverage of football media days throughout the Midwest, and our stop today is in Kansas City. And we're going to get to visit first with someone that is a familiar face, at least to MidwestSports.net, because we got to visit with this guy last year, Brooke Bowles, who is the quarterback at Central Missouri, redshirt senior this year. And you get to come back and play a little bit more as Brooke was injured in the first game of the season last year, a very tough game, a tight game, one against the eventual conference champion in Fort Hays State. And Brooke, just take us, at least bring some folks up to speed. You had the injury, had to sit out the rest of the season, but you get another opportunity to come back and have one more senior year.
Yes, sir. Like you said, was out whole season, didn't get to play at all, played the first half of the first game, and then was sidelined the rest of the year. But yeah, recovery process went really well. Went actually a lot faster than I thought it was going to be. Only took about 3 months, and then it was kind of just slowly working back into it. But yeah, it went really well. Ready to get back out there.
I can imagine. Yeah. One of the things that stood out to me from getting to visit with you last year was the fact that you just knew everyone. You knew your team, and it was more than just a quarterback, giving lip service to, well, the offensive linemen, do a great job. I mean, just line them out one by one, talk about them individually, each player on the offense specifically. You have a whole different look this year. Do you take that same approach and just knowing them all so well?
Oh, yeah. I really love about UCM is that we are a family. From the day I came in until the day I'll leave, and even being alumni, we're a family. I've built relationships with guys on the team that will last lifetimes, and I cherish that. And so it's good to get to know guys, and I take pride in that. Much of the freshmen from last year, I didn't really think that, obviously last year I didn't think I was going to get hurt, so I didn't think that, I'd probably hang out with them a lot. So this extra year kind of gave me that time to get to know those guys and meet some of them. And we got some very interesting, fun, younger guys that are stepping up that are going to do a really good job this year. So.
We talked about the possibilities last year and that it was setting up well. Of course, you had some horses there in the backfield with you, and you get Devontae Turner back again, one of the best running backs, not only in the MIAA, but also, I would say, in the country. But you go into it this year, the goals are still the same. You want to win a national championship. You want to win a conference championship, and I know you want to win every game. Boy, the pieces on the puzzle board are different. How is that in your mindset now, knowing, okay, it's a whole different deck of cards?
I think it's really interesting to me because we're a lot younger than we have been in the past, and it actually reminds me of my brother Brady when he played at Northwest his senior year. They were really young skill-wise with receivers and DBs and stuff like that, and that's what we are. We're really young receivers and DBs and running backs and stuff like that. So. It's just a lot of similarities there, and they actually ended up going on to win the national championship that year with some young guys that were, they maybe didn't have the most experience, but they were hard workers, and they were determined, and they wanted to win, and they wanted that goal and that stuff ahead of them, and I think that we have that this year with our guys. One
last question as we speak with Brooke Bowles from Central Missouri. I know it had to be tough. I mean, I don't think I would be putting words in your mouth or saying anything out of line, saying that it was tough watching from the sideline throughout the season. And with the Mules finishing 5-6, they're maybe a few more lows than highs in that season. Mm-hmm. How ready are you to get back out there?
I've been ready since last fall, so I'm really ready. I'm really excited for what this senior year brings. Well, second senior year. We got to say double red shirt on there.
That's right. We'll find a way to work that in.
I'm very excited for this year. Like you said, it was very tough. I think it humbled me a lot, just being injured last year and knowing that I kind of had to work even that much harder to get back to where I'm at now. So.
All right. Well, success to you this season,
Thank
Brooke,
you.
and I appreciate you taking the time with us today. And seriously, have a great second senior year and do well.
Thank you very much.
Brooke Bowles, the quarterback at Central Missouri, and we're going to get an opportunity to visit with his coach here in just a moment. We'll take just a quick break and be right back here on MidwestSports.net. We get to visit now with the head coach of the Central Missouri Mules, Coach Jim Zavoda. Coach, thank you for stopping by today.
Thanks for having me.
MIAA Football Media Day, and we got to visit with Brooke just a moment ago. And, Coach, let's just start right there because it was a privilege. It really was just an honor to get to visit with him last year and prior to the season. And,
right.
And thinking, well, the things seem to be set up well for him. Of course, as he was injured in the first game of the season, a heartbreaking loss, I know, not only on the field but also with him. Talk about having him back now for another year.
Well, I love Brooke. He's is competitive and as good a team guy as I've been around. Just really, what drives him is really the opportunity to win and bring a championship to Central Missouri, and so that's the thing you love in your quarterback. But he's just he's a tough kid. He has the ability to make plays. He has great passion for the game and for UCM, and so anytime you have your returning starting quarterback, it's a plus. But when he's a special guy like Brooke, it's you're just like trying to hold yourself back a little bit because we got a lot of guys that need to step up their game to make us the team that we need to be.
Coach, you mentioned out before the entire audience just a moment ago in the main stage at the Football Media Day that this game is a game of inches, and that there were just a few times last year where it just didn't go the way of UCM as you finished 5-6 and some tough losses along the way. Does something like that carry over? How do you build off that, or do you just say what's in the past is in the past and we have to move on?
Well, that's a good question because I think that nobody was happy with it. So does it make sense to keep driving home the point that you were 5-6 and it was like the worst season I've had as a head coach? We never lost more than 4 games in a season, let alone 6. So I think everybody's kind of aware of that. At the same time, you have to take an honest look on how you got there and make sure that it doesn't happen again. Control the things that you can control. So it can work as a motivator, but I think if you harp on it too much, you don't want it to become a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Right.
So we don't, it's really more where we're at now, what kind of progress we're making now. And, we've been in the league long enough, and these kids have played enough league games that they know what they're in for. And so, I think there will be a high level of motivation game one, when kind of where all the sort of stuff started last year. But you have to be pretty motivated in every game in MIAA.
Speaking now with Coach Jim Zavoda from Central Missouri. Coach, you do bring back a number of starters from last season, 5 on the offensive side of the ball, and that includes your center with Heckler and, of course, one of the best running backs in the league and I believe in the country in Turner. But you bring back 8 on the defensive side of the ball, including your
good news,
tackler.
bad news.
Yeah, well, your leading tackler from last year in John Embry. Which side of the ball benefits more from the returners that are coming back?
I think that playing experience is hard to replace. I don't know that you really know what you're in for at this level as a player until you actually get into a game. And so we had a number of those kids. Granted, a lot of them weren't ready for that game or, for that experience, but it hardens you and it makes you better and better prepared for what you're up against. We as I mentioned in the press conference, we played 7 true freshmen last year, and that's more than the previous 8 years combined. So kind of calluses you up a little bit. Offensively, we have 4 on the offensive line that have starting experience. So you have Brooke back. Zach Davison wasn't a starter, but he played a lot. Shea Wyatt was a starter. And our 2 running backs, basically they're both starters. So we have, some pretty good experience there. And there's going to be some names come out of that receiving core that are going to turn some heads this year. Our kids are really excited about what they've seen on 7-on-7 with some of these young receivers we got. So year in and year out, we've been in the top 10 in the country-ish passing game. So you have the ability to attract some good quarterbacks and receivers when you do that.
Coach, one last question. It is a young team. That's been mentioned a couple of times. And, of course, you talked about all those true freshmen. Apparently last year was a year of a lot of firsts, maybe some good, some bad.
Right.
But with a young team like that then, I've heard people say, well, midway through the year they're not freshmen anymore. I tend to disagree with that. They're freshmen until they turn into sophomores. But you know more now for what you're going to get from this team. What should we expect to see this year on the field?
Well, I think that what I'm really looking for is for us to become a more opportunistic team, and it's word's a little bit obscure, but it can indicate a lot. And I saw us lose that last year. When you're a good football team, you kind of have a knack for making the plays when you need to make them, making an interception, making a sack, making the catch, whatever it is. And as you sort of lose confidence, and those close games probably do more for hurting your confidence than anything, because you think, what do we got to do? We played our guts out and we still lost. So I think that, as you mentioned, talking about last year and kind of bouncing back off, you don't want to talk about it too much because you want to get that aspect back. And that's what I hope to see. Is that we still have that joy and that we're not putting so much pressure on ourselves. It's like, we got to get out of this now, really using it as a backdrop motivator as opposed to a do-or-die situation, because we're best when we're kind of out there, playing free and having fun with it, and just like anybody else is when they're at the top of their game. So we got to make sure we balance that motivation, saying this is BS, this is not our program, but at the same time not losing our love for the game.
Right. Well, Coach, the success has been there, and I imagine that there were probably some teams that were happy to get a win in while they could, because they've been few and far between against the Mules over your tenure there. So success to you again this season, and thank you very much for taking some time with us today.
I appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
Coach Jim Zavoda, Central Missouri Mules. We'll take a moment here and back with more from the MIAA Football Media Day 2019.
Good job, man.
Back here at the MIAA Football Media Day here in Kansas City, and we're at the Kauffman Foundation Conference Center right now. And I'm joined by the head coach of the Fort Hays State Tigers football team, Coach Chris Brown. Coach, thank you very much for taking time with us today. And success has become very much a part of what you all do anyway, but we're seeing it now with back-to-back conference championships. You won it outright 2 years ago and shared the title last season. Congratulations on the program's success.
Thank you very much. All the credit, really goes to the man above. I mean, God's really taking care of us, and He's given me a great group of kids to work with, day in and day out. Give me a great coaching staff, great administration. He's truly blessed this team. We give this team over to God, and our kids. We do Bible studies every Monday. We do, we have a college ministry called Encounter out there that about 60 kids, attend every Wednesday, and we have a lot of faith. We pray before practice, we pray after practice, before the game, halftime, after the game. We do a chapel before, every game as well, and. Faith's a big part of it. You got faith in God, you got faith in your coaches, faith in your teammates, and if you don't have faith, then why are you here?
That's exactly right. I could not have put that any better. Well, Coach, as you have been able to come away with wins within the conference, and obviously we know it's a very tough conference in which to get wins, you've been able to do that, make it on, get to the playoffs the last couple of years, and struggled in the playoffs the last couple of years, and varying reasons, injuries, and a couple things like that. Obviously, you're a different team into Week 12, 13, and 14 than you are back in Week 1. How does something like that, how do you build on that then? And obviously you have to get back to the playoffs again this season to build on it, but does something like that carry over, that first round was a tough one?
Yeah, it does. It's we still got a bad taste in our mouth because you still got that loss, sitting there, and we got to find another way. We got to find a way to win ball games and get that good taste back in our mouth. And our kids are amped up for it. I keep talking to them about who wants to don't be the group that sets us back and not winning a conference title. And they're they said, well, Coach, that's the last thing we're worried about is the conference. We want to get in the playoffs, and we want to win playoff games and get to the big games. So I think they've got their minds are in the right place. They're committed. They're working hard. They're doing everything we ask them to do. I mean, this group of young men that we have right now has done more work in the summer than I've ever seen. Talking to our strength coach and with the lifting and then the running afterwards, and then they go do individual drills. After that on their own, and then they do 7-on-7 as well. Sometimes these kids are working out 3 times a day, putting in the effort, and all the credit goes to them. I mean, they work so hard, and I love them so much, and but they do have that taste of they want to go win a national championship, and they want to make a run in the playoffs, and the only way they're going to do that is by working, and they've worked.
Well, you have a number of players that have that experience now, that not only have the conference titles and the rings that go with that, but then the playoff experience to build on that. Talk about your returners, and including then we'll get a chance to hear from one of your receivers here in just a moment. But talk about those who return for your team.
On the offensive side, we got a bunch of guys that are returning. We have Matt Wendelberg will be returning at tight end, Lane Bieberly at wide receiver, Harley Hageslett at wide receiver, Andrew Jay's coming back as well. Chance Fuller, who played a lot for us last year at quarterback, will be back. Charles Tigner at tailback. Our old line, we lost a few guys early in the season last year with Nathan Hill and Pat Kelly, and first game of the year. They're both going to be back, to play for us. Amari's back on the old line as well, and we have 2 kids that were redshirt freshmen last year that started for us on the line are back. So, I feel pretty good, about our offense and the things that they're doing and the way they're gelling. And, we have a lot of guys that have a lot of playing experience on that side of the ball. Defensively, we lost a lot of good guys last year. We lost Jose Delgado, Wyatt Parker, Malik Young, Doyne Jabowu, who's with the Chicago Bears right now, Connor Shadid. I mean, there was just a few to name, but we lost some good players on that side of the ball. But hopefully we built it to the point now where we brought a lot of freshmen in and they've just come in buying their time, and now it's their chance. And I'm excited to see what these young men do. I think they got the talent. I think they just got to play with some confidence and believe in themselves. And but I think it's there. I still think it's going to be a very, very solid defense.
Coach, you mentioned, of course, with Delgado, obviously that leaves that big gap. But if you're building it up as you're talking about, you do more reloading than just trying to replace players like that. But one of the names that did stand out to me, Chance Fuller, as a starter. He'll be a sophomore this year. He did have 2 starts to his credit.
Yep.
I think when we think about the 2018 Tigers football team, we're still going to think Jacob Mazzara.
Yep.
But Fuller did get those 2 starts, and it seems as though he has the confidence of his team.
He does. He does. You know, Jacob did wonderful, wonderful things for us. He broke a lot of school records, won a lot of football games for us, did some great things, kind of laid the foundation for our quarterbacks and what we expect out of our quarterbacks. And, you know, I think Chances is going to fit right into that role for us as well. He's got a great head on his shoulders. He's smart. The guys have confidence in him. The players, I mean, the kids love him to death. You know, he has fun at practice. He loves being at practice. I mean, every time he's on the field, all he does is smile, and he's happy, and he's excited, and you know, that's the kind of guy you want. It just kind of gets the juices flowing for everybody else, and they start getting excited and love being out there as well. And he's a great leader, you know. And if he doesn't like something, the way the kids are doing something, he doesn't really yell at him. He just explains to him, okay, I want you to run the route this way, or I want you to catch the ball this way, or this is where I want you to be. And he's very, very calm with it. But tremendous leader, great work ethic. Kids love him. Coaching staff loves him. I mean, he's just a great kid to have on your team.
Coach, your team was picked first and second in the 2 polls here, the coaches poll and the media poll. Obviously, they think that the folks here think that you can make another run at a conference title. Talk about how you see this season then, and what should we expect to see from the Tigers on the field?
You know, polls are polls. You know, they really are. You still got to play 11 games. There's some very, very good teams in this conference. I think any team in this conference could win, you know, this conference championship because that's how competitive it is. But I think we could be pretty good. You know, we got to humble ourselves, come back down to earth. You know, just because it says number 1 on the paper doesn't mean that we are number 1. You know, we're not entitled to that, and we got to go earn that number 1 spot, and it's going to take with a lot of commitment. A lot of accountability, being disciplined in everything that we do, making sure we're doing things right in the classroom, in the community, you know, on the football field, in the weight room, and just being great people. And I think if we be great people and have faith and do the things the right way, good things will happen. It's not going to be given to you. So, and that's something that we tell our kids all the time. Let's be great at everything, not just football, but great people, great in our faith, great in our community, great in the classroom. If we can do those things, we'll be great on the field on Saturdays. So be great in all aspects of your life, and the winning will take care of itself.
All right. Well, Coach, I appreciate your stance. I really appreciate the way that you would address how you all go about things with your faith and how important something like that is. So I just want to say I commend you for that and keep up the good work. And, you know, another opportunity. So trying to make it 3 straight here for the Fort Hays Tigers. Polls aside. The games are going to be played, and it's just right around the corner. So success to you, Coach, this season. And thanks for taking time with us today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
We'll take another break. Back with some more here on the MIAA Media Football Media Day here and our coverage on MidwestSports.net. Speaking now with Colt Traxel for Fort Hays State. And Colt, playing on that defense, you've won a couple of conference championships so far. As a matter of fact, you know, I know it's down near the bottom of the screen. Show us that left hand there. Pair of championship rings there. If you can't see that, I need to be able to zoom in on that. Zoom in on that and check that at home. A couple of championships there. So congratulations to you and to the team for winning in the MIAA. Again, a very, very tough conference in which to win not just 1 title, but 2. Talk about the success then and what it's been like to play on the team for the last couple of years.
I mean, it's been awesome. You know, I think it starts with our coaches. We got to believe in our coaches, and the coaches believe in us, and it gives us a lot of confidence. the coaches, put us in positions to make plays, win games. And when you get that confidence from your coaches, I mean, it just goes through the team. And each year we've seen it progress and get better each year. And we get more and more kids bought in. And our ultimate goal is to get to that big one. And it's getting there. And we got guys stepping up, making plays. And I'm excited for the season.
I heard Coach Brown say it's all about the players. And I heard you all say it's all about the coaches, talking about you and Lane Bieberly, who is here also representing Fort Hays State, as you all were out on the main stage just a few moments ago, and you just bounced it back and forth off one another. Is it just because you're just so ingrained to deflect the credit to somebody else, or you guys, it sounds like you really believe it?
Yeah, no, it's the respect we have with our coaches and how they respect us. I mean, we got to work together. We're all one big family, one big team. I mean, if coaches aren't doing what they're supposed to do, then we're going to lack in that area. I mean, if the players aren't listening to the coaches, then obviously you're going to see that in our gameplay. But obviously we're on the same page. In the last 2 years, it's been working out good for us, and this year we're just trying to take that next step.
You're one of 5 players coming back, 5 starters coming back on the defensive side of the ball. You lose some serious firepower from that side of the ball. Talk about how you step it up and make things happen in 2019.
Yeah, no, we lost some big guys there that helped us out this last year. But just like any other team, you got to replace them. And these guys that just left kind of paved the road for these younger guys, show them what they need to do at that position to make plays and to be that elite team that we've been these last 2 years to make it become the conference champs. And we got the guys. We got the young guys that are going to step up this summer. They've been working real hard, and I'm excited to see what our defense can do this year.
All right, then. I'll give you a chance to turn it around a little bit and give some props to the folks on the other side of the ball. You have to go up against them in practice on a regular basis, and obviously this is an offense that's made some noise in the conference in the last couple of years. Talk about your offense and what you see.
No, our offense, they make big plays. Our quarterback, Chance, he's young, but he plays like he's a senior. I mean, he's not shy. He's not afraid to, make a big play, risk it. It's kind of tough going against the guys sometimes when offense and defense go against each other because he's just so smart and he's smart with the ball. Lane Bieberly, our corners have a rough time with him. Harley Hazlitt, running backs, O-line's getting a lot better. I'm excited to see what those guys can do, make big plays, explosive plays. I'm real excited because when defense slacks, we know the offense is going to pick it up. So,
all right, well, success to you guys this year. This is Colt Traxon from the Fort Hays State Tigers, and a team picked, depending upon which poll you want to go with, coaches, media poll, first and second in the league, an opportunity to win a 3rd straight championship. Success to you all.
Yep, thank you.
Take a break. Back in a moment. I think we're going to get to hear from one more of these Fort Hays State Tigers in just a moment. We do get one more Fort Hays State Tiger. We get to hear from the wide receivers from this Tigers offense in Lane Bieberly. Now, your teammate spoke well about the offense just a moment ago. I gave him an opportunity to talk about that. Let me just start right there and give you an opportunity to talk about this defense. Of course, only half the starters coming back. You have a number of younger players coming in, folks to step in a role. You go against that defense day in and day out in practice. Talk about this Fort Hays State defense.
Yeah, we lost some key players on defense last year, but the great thing about having those guys is they've taught the younger guys and the guys needing to step up a great role in our defense, and going against them day in and day out on offense has been nothing but beneficial for us on offense. So. Colt's another. I mean, he's the leader of that defense, and he's done a great job, especially over the summer, getting everybody lined up where they need to be. Just especially when we go throughout 7-on-7, just making sure everything's going correct and right.
From winning back-to-back conference titles, Fort Hays State, you return so many of the offensive players from last season, and I'm sure not just starters, but down the list some as well. How big is something like that for you to be able to just pick up, in essence, where you left off?
It's awesome. I mean, not losing. We lost one good quarterback last year, but we also filled the role of a great young quarterback, Chance Fuller, coming in. So, just being able to have him and having our offense with that experience is pretty great. And just like you said, being able to pick up where you kind of left off, it's great. And having Chance back there at quarterback, he's young, but he's already showing that he can be he's already acting like a senior quarterback, you know what I mean? And he's taken that leadership role well, and he's going well.
For you personally, as a senior then, and there are times, I know senior receivers, you have all the reps, some of these younger quarterbacks that come in, you can find an opportunity to gel, but you've already had time on the field in real life action with him out there. That has to be big as well.
Oh yeah, I mean the 3 games he played in, 3 games he started in last year, and he's played in here and there and the other ones. I mean, he came in and just is a natural. He's a natural quarterback, and he showed no mercy when he was playing, and that's what he's going to do. That's what he's going to bring to the table, and he's going to do it week in and week out.
One last question, Lane. For you individually as a receiver, and you do have a good receiving core. You're part of a receiving core, but individually, with more than 800 yards receiving last year, you also lead the team in all-purpose yards as well with what you do as a punt returner. The team goals are the most important. Are there any individual goals this year?
There is, yeah. Like you said, team goals are the most important, but just bettering yourself each year. Taking from what you did last year and bettering yourself. You know what I mean? And no one's perfect. I mean, when you're out there on the field, and so I just try to take whatever I did from the previous season and work on it a little bit better and just better myself up a little bit.
All right. Well, you guys have a lot of success to build on, so success to you this season as well. Thank you very much, Lane, for taking the time with us today on MidwestSports.net from the MIAA Football Media Day. We're going to take a break, and we will be right back in just a moment.
Thank you.
We are back here as we get to visit now with the head coach from Central Oklahoma, Nick Bobeck. Coach, as many times as we've talked over the years, it's a privilege now to have you getting to sit next to me. I think this is the first time that we've actually sat in the same room and visited.
Yeah, I believe it probably is. But we've had a lot of conversations over the past couple of years, and I always appreciate those conversations. They're a little bit more than surface level, and I appreciate that.
And thank you very much. I appreciate them as well. And it's been fun to get to cover Central Oklahoma, especially in your time. Now, of course, MidwestSports.net with our 6-state coverage, but it all started with OklahomaSports.net and covering UCO and watching the program grow with you and what you have brought in there. You were talking on the main stage just a moment ago about the graduation rate and the caliber of the players that are there. I think that you're able to recruit them well when they see the culture that you have started there, invested there in Edmond. Talk about that culture.
Yeah, I think that was the goal when we took the job over in 2012. Is I didn't know a lot, and I still don't. But what I do know is that winning in this league is about being consistent. We have not hit consistency yet, but we are, we believe that where you find consistency is you keep the main thing. Make sure that we're getting kids graduated. Make sure that we're investing in them as young men. Are they better husbands? Are they better fathers? Are they better employees for being in our program? Obviously, if you keep the main thing, the wins are going to take care of themselves, and you're investing in the correct things with these kids. So I believe that it has done, had great impact on the kids that we're being able to bring into our program. Also the facilities that we've built and the investment from the university and the private donors has been really important in that as well. But kids like Tyler Stillwell and O'Shea Harris, and then guys that were there early in those first couple of years where we were getting our tails whipped every week. Kids like Josh Birmingham and Christian Hood and Tyler Newton and Sam Moses and those guys that stayed.
Yeah.
They're really the fabric of our program, and those are the guys that I'm so proud of, because every one of those guys are successful right now. Those guys that stayed, I mean, it wasn't easy, and it was a situation where I've grown from that time too. But those guys really stuck with it, and that's really the backbone of this whole thing.
You mentioned names like Birmingham and Hood and some of those players a few years back for UCO, and I can tell you, honestly, I don't think of it as the game's being lost. When I think about those names and those players, I think about what they did bring to the table and how they handled themselves and what they did for the team. So, those names bring back good memories, at least for me. I know you probably remember the losses a whole lot more, but still, those are the quality players.
No question.
Well, you have a number of quality players. You mentioned a couple that are here with you today in Kansas City, and what they're going to do out there this season. Talk about the defense for just a moment, because another winning record at UCO last year, and according to the coaches and media polls, picked 4th and 5th, in separate polls for this season. This defense really did a lot for you last year, and pitching 3 shutouts. I mean, wow. And back to back, no less. I mean, you all had an amazing run going. Right. Talk about that defense and how can they carry that over?
Early on, that was really where our issues were on the defensive side of the football in those early years, but it wasn't – I knew that it wasn't a coaching issue. I knew the people that we had within our program. I knew it had a lot to do with – we were so depleted when we took that job over, and you go into that you're in that first season, and you've got 2 defensive tackles at the end of the season, and that's it, and that was hard. But those kids toughed it out. Those coaches toughed it out, and we've made a point. We know that you must play consistent defense to win at any level. In my opinion, that's a philosophy of mine. It's a recruiting philosophy for us, and you must be very talented on that side of the football. Rules in NCAA, are slanted towards offensive football. Well, why don't you just go get the best offensive players that you can find and then shoot it out every week? Well, at some point, somebody's going to stop you, or you're going to stop yourself. So I think that, that's where coaching comes in on the offensive side of the football, and having kids that can score touchdowns on that side of the ball. When you look at our roster, majority of our out-of-state players are either on special teams or they're on the defensive side of the football. The rest of our roster, 80% of our roster, are Oklahoma kids, and we have, I think, 4 non-resident kids on the offensive side of the football. So there's an investment on our part and a philosophy that there's really good high school football players in the state of Oklahoma. There's really good football in the state of Oklahoma, and we know that we can go find offensive football players in the state of Oklahoma. But to really find, difference maker type kids at corner, defensive line, you need to be able to go outside the state of Oklahoma. I'm not saying that the state of Oklahoma doesn't have good defensive football players, but the amounts that we need, a lot of those kids are signing Division I if they're really high quality defensive football players in the state of Oklahoma, because the state is over recruited, to be quite honest with you. It is heavily recruited. So we've got to go in and we've got to find those kids that are in small towns, and they're long, they're flexible, they love playing football, and we understand that they're 2 years out. and we got to develop the
Yeah.
heck out of them.
Yeah. Coach, you were talking about, and I want to mention one of those players that you talked about coming along and going up through the program. Winning in this conference, I would imagine, it takes so many different aspects. But I think one of the things that comes to mind are what happens in the trenches. The defensive lineman, the offensive lineman, like a Tyler Stillwell. Talk about then in building up that area as well, because you have done a good job there.
Yeah. We won't sign a kid from outside of the state of Oklahoma on the offensive line. It will not happen. I won't do it. We know that you can find the right kids in the state of Oklahoma, and that's why I coach the offensive line. I'm gonna make sure that those kids are developed at the proper level that they need to be developed at. But the other part about it is if you don't have a solid, cohesive group along the offensive line, it doesn't matter what type of skill players that you have. It doesn't matter what you have at the quarterback position. It does not matter. So you've got to be able to have a solid group along the offensive line, and Tyler Stillwell's a great example of that. He's a kid that has bled bronze and blue since the moment that he stepped on campus, and I love coaching him. He's a tough kid, and I don't know that I can say anything better about a kid than being tough and consistent.
All right, Coach. How do you take that next step then? You have the program from this point to this point now, and obviously you want to. I mean, it's nice to be farther down the line, but the program hasn't quite arrived yet. You've left, but it hasn't quite arrived yet. So what's the next step?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think the next step is being consistent, week in, week out. You don't go and beat Northwest Missouri the way we beat Northwest Missouri and then go get shut out the next week if you're consistent. And we're not consistent yet, and that's where the great programs, not only in our conference but throughout the country, are consistent week in and week out. And society we live in today, and you end up dealing with a lot of inconsistencies. And we talk to our guys about, we don't want a roller coaster. We want to know, what are you from week to week. We want it level. It might not be the top of the peak, but we want to know who you are, day in and day out, and it speaks to character. And continuing to keep the character kids in our program, and we're pushing non-character kids out. Honestly, I mean, and that's where you create consistency, and that's what we believe is the next step. And because we're talented, we've been talented, but we've been very inconsistent too.
Well, you talk about the character, and that seems to be a common denominator from the teams that have found that success that you're talking about. So, Coach Nick Bobeck from Central Oklahoma, the Broncos, again picked 4th or 5th, and looking for a little bit more than that maybe this year if the consistency comes around. Coach, thank you so much for taking time with us today here on MidwestSports.net. And we'll take a break. Back in a moment with just one more opportunity here from this morning session of the MIAA Football Media Day. Back here at the MIAA Football Media Day, I'm Joey McWilliams, joined by O'Shea Harris from the Central Oklahoma Broncos. O'Shea, nice to have you up here in Kansas City, and you had quite a year last year, an All-American, getting some preseason honors as well to go along with that. You had a great year last year. How do you follow that up?
I just kind of followed the same recipe I did last year. Work hard in the summer, work hard in the spring ball, work hard in the summer, and then take it one game at a time, and hopefully I get the same results.
Well, you were on the list. You've already made some of the record book lists there at UCO, which is a pretty big deal. Made in the top 10, I believe, number 8 all-time for a season in unassisted tackles, as you had more than 50 of those last year. You find a way to get the ball. Now, that's a big deal for a program like Central Oklahoma with not only the history of wins and losses, but the athletes that have been there. Talk about what it means to get to the ball then that quickly.
It's just, I don't know, I feel like it's part of our defense. Coach Pickett always talks about speed kills, and if everybody gets to the ball fast, then even if you might not make the tackle, then you got people around you that's going to make the tackle, so you can play without a conscience, I guess you can say. You just play free.
That's how a defender should play anyway, right? Without a conscience.
Yeah.
Get out there and just go after someone. Now, on a personal note there, then, I remember, and I look back on some of this, you come from where I come from in Carter County.
Yes, sir.
As you played at Lone Grove. Now, that's on the west side of Carter County, in case you don't know the geography there of all of that. I graduated at Dixon. I didn't play football. I was a basketball player. No, I didn't play on that level you did. But from coming from Lone Grove, a 3A school in Oklahoma, and now on this part of your career now, as you're winding down your career, how did you get to Edmond? What brought you to Edmond, and what would you like to leave there from your time?
Really, I didn't have too many offers coming out of high school, and UCO was the most consistent. They just showed the most love, so I felt like that's where I wanted to go, and that's where I needed to be. And then I just wanted to leave a legacy. I just wanted to be a great player. And then over the years, I'm starting to do that.
Well, the numbers are adding up, no doubt, and the honors are adding up as well. So as you come into this season, what do you see happening on the field this year?
I don't know. I just want to take it one game at a time. I'm going to give it everything I have, and hopefully I come out with something special.
Coach talked about consistency. Is that a big part of what you're hearing from these coaches?
Yes, sir. I feel like without consistency, you'll have nothing. You just got to do the same thing over and over again, and then good things come from being consistent. All
right. Well, success to you this season then, O'Shea. All-American defender for University of Central Oklahoma, and you all have a great year. We'll take a break and back with one more person here from this morning session at the MIAA Football Media Day.
Thank you.
Here with Tyler Stillwell from UCO now as we get to visit with one of these offensive linemen that Coach Bobeck was talking about. And I have to tell you, Tyler, I mean, he was promoting the linemen there at UCO and really talking about not only from where you all come from high school to get to UCO, as he was talking about there being a really strong group of offensive linemen from within the state of Oklahoma to come in, but also talking about what you all have actually done on the field. Talk about both those things, coming from an Oklahoma high school into UCO. How did you get there? And then talk about what you're doing right now.
Well, to start, the offensive line is the most important position on the offense, because if you don't have an offensive line, you don't really have anything. But I'm from Yukon, just 30 minutes from Edmond. So I was able to go to a lot of UCO games and experience, the culture and watching it, and they were starting to win games at that point whenever I was a senior in high school. And right now we've got, 4 returning starters. We're looking for that 5th spot. It'll probably be Ben Ralston. He played a lot last year. So really, we've got 5 guys that have had significant playing time, and we've gotten together a lot as a group this summer, working on our technique and our skills and stuff. So we're headed in the right direction.
In your time in Edmond and being on that line, you've had a number of different teammates in the quarterback position, running back position. You've had some pretty quality folks back there. Does your game change with the different people in the backfield, or is it just consistent straight through? You try to do the same things game in and game out, year in and year out?
Yeah, I think it's consistent for us. We do have one real job, and that's to make those guys look good. So, once our job is over and they're down the field, they, they do a good job of scoring touchdowns and, getting yards for us. So our job really doesn't change.
It's probably, well, I say probably, there are stats that go along with your position, but not as many that are going to be flashy, and you're probably not going to have too many offensive linemen on your fantasy football team. Would that be a fair assessment?
That's pretty fair.
No, good. But so how did you develop into that and say, listen, I have the body type, I think I can do this well, or did you, when you were younger, look and say, man, I want to play that position?
When I was younger, I did play middle linebacker and fullback, and I always wanted to touch the ball. But as I got bigger, and I come from a big family, and my dad played offensive line and defensive line, so it was something I grew into. And kids always kind of want the spotlight. I think they want to touch the ball, they want to be recognized. But as I grew into this role, I took pride in it. Offensive linemen, like you said, don't have stats. They don't get their name called, but that's okay with me, because when we're winning games and we're scoring touchdowns, and then
that's right,
I've done my job. That's
exactly right. Okay, talk about 2019. Then what do you see coming from the Broncos this year?
We're going to be a real good football team. We only graduated two guys on offense, so we'll have a lot of guys coming back. A lot of guys that played on defense last year. We did lose some starters, but there were still a lot of guys that played. And we've had really good numbers in the off season and in this summer, our summer weight program. I'm really excited. It's going to be a great season.
All right, Tyler Stillwell on that offensive line, the most important position. And you heard that here too. I agree. It's a very important position. Most important position on the team. The UCO Broncos heading into the 2019 season. Tyler, thank you so much for taking time with us today.
Thanks for having me.
We wrap up this portion of our coverage of the MIAA Football Media Day 2019 from Kansas City, and we have enjoyed this, so stick around. More coverage is on the way. I'm Joey McWilliams. Thanks for watching us here on MidwestSports.net.